So today we're going to be continuing to take a look at a scenario where civilization starts over. In the last episode, we saw a lot of exploration in India. We saw the Egyptian Civil War that ended with a Nile country forming up. A lot of countries actually formed up in the European area. We saw a coalition war between these two Iberian countries versus Numidia. And finally, the Tripolitanian Union formed up between Tripolitania and Carthage. Did I say Tripolitanian? I meant the Punic Union. Anyways, if you guys like my videos, like and subscribe to the channel. We're trying to reach 7 million subscribers tomorrow, so I'd really appreciate it if you can help get us there. Anyways, let's go ahead and jump right in. First of all, we are going to go ahead and see some exploration in India. Obviously, there are lots and lots of rivers in India, and basically the exploration peoples are just going to follow the rivers. They get over here to Bangladesh. But we can't forget about the UAE country, who is going to expand more along the coast of Arabia. Now, this is pretty much mostly desert. However, it's more arable than the inland areas. Eventually, they are going to make a sort of colony right here. They make it along the Gulf of Aden and also into the areas of northern Djibouti. And from here, a lot of people are going to move up north. Some people who don't want to be forced into this colony are going to move up north into modern-day Saudi Arabia, and they're going to go ahead and move up with the Levant explorers. Anyways, the Levant people are going to be like, hi, I'm a nice guy, and so a colony is going to kind of be made right here. But the main thing we see happening is a new country forming up, which I cannot find a good color. This is going to be this country right here, the modern-day Holy Lands of Saudi Arabia, and these are mostly people from the UAE. Here we also see explorers go ahead and discover parts of Ethiopia. They see this mountainous terrain, they see a couple of different valleys and rivers, and they go along this part of the Nile, and they decide to form up their own nation. And they make this green one, which is basically just hugging this part of the Nile. We're also going to see the Nileans continue to go along the Nile. Over here in Europe, we are going to see Normandy plan out an invasion of this pink country, and they immediately follow up with this plan, taking the capital city and moving along until they reach this river. And they're just going to squeeze out the remaining forces. The forces in the south are going to go ahead and go to Galicia. However, these guys are going to move over here to mostly this southern French country. Either way, yeah, these guys are squished out, and they're gone. In the peace treaty, we can go ahead and see Normandy will annex the capital city, the former capital city of the pink country, and the rest, which is basically just this area next to this gulf. So the puppet state of Bordeaux is now existing, and Normandy's actually going to go ahead and expand it so they don't get mad. And it's mainly along this river down here. And Normandy will do some expanding as well, conquering more areas of England, and they get up into Wales and start taking more of it. But then the Scottish are going to come down and save the day, and they're going to take a lot of the remaining parts of England. However, the Normandy guys are going to take the rest of it. They're also going to expand in the rest of Europe. And next up on our agenda is Bulgaria. A general comes about in this Cyan Bulgarian country. His name is Ivan. He rises up out of this southern city right here, and he starts to conquer more land throughout Bulgaria, until eventually he sieges the capital and takes the rest of this light blue Bulgarian nation. And instead of keeping their capital right here, they're actually going to make it the birthplace of Ivan. And from here, Ivan is going to launch an attack on the brown Bulgarian nation, focusing on the more populated areas, eventually taking this major city. And people around the country actually start to support him, and the capital falls relatively quickly. People around the Black Sea are starting to want a unified state, which is just under one, and Ivan sees this as his dream to conquer pretty much all of the Black Sea. From here, they will go ahead and invade into this Romanian country. Not so fast, says Crimea, who's immediately going to decide we're going to third party on this war, and they take the rest of modern-day Ukraine, and they're going to eventually split the capital with them and Ivan. In the peace treaty, we can go ahead and see that Romania is split between the two nations. And the general of Crimea, who is named Vladislav, is becoming very popular, as Vladislav doesn't know that Ivan sees him as an enemy. However, Ivan definitely sees Vladislav as an enemy. The Punic Union wants to do some stuff. First of all, this area is going to get divided, and we can see Turkey gain the most land out of this. But Ivan's going to go on his next move. First of all, something huge is going to happen. A rebellion from Trebizond is going to occur. And from here, we're going to see that Ivan is going to launch his own invasion inside of Turkey, immediately taking a lot of the Macedonian regions, cutting off actual Macedonia and Thessaloniki from the rest of Thrace. Yes, it's Thrace, not Thrice. You're brainwashed by AdizzPro, I'm sorry to say it. But Ivan and his great men are going to capture Gallipoli, and they're even going to cross the sea into this area right here. And eventually, after a long fought battle, they're going to take this major city. And they even take Istanbul and meet up with the Trebizond rebels. Now, Turkey isn't a weak country. Let's get this straight. They are going to move across and separate Trebizond from the rest of their areas. See that the Punic Union wants to make a colony in this area. So they're going to invade Rhodes and take this city. And they kind of stop from there. Now, this area is extremely resilient. They would probably rather be part of Turkey than Ivan's country. But what we see happening is Trebizond is going to take this major city and eventually take the rest of these areas, providing a way easier front line. The Turks who were in this area fighting decided to go across this area and move to Armenia, in which they actually populate this a lot. We can go ahead and see the Bulgarian Empire is going to get pushed back over here. However, they can't make a landing in Gallipoli. However, over here in the mainland, the front line has basically collapsed as they are moving deep and deep into this nation. They siege this city right here. However, it's pretty hard as there's actually a pretty big garrison right there. And this allows Trebizond to move back, and a full-on frontline collapse for Turkey is about to happen as their troops are spread very thin. We can go ahead and see the Punic Union is going to occupy more areas right here. However, they're going to stop and say, Turkey, we don't like Ivan and his new nation, but this is just going to have to be the way it is. Macedonia actually manages to fight back. Ivan's not in this region. There's another general who's really bad. But they managed to retake parts of Thessaloniki, but they don't really get that far. And the siege of the city actually has a Turkish win. However, that doesn't last long, because troops from the north are threatening this city, and eventually they just have to leave it in threat of an encirclement. And their front lines have truly collapsed. There's really nothing leaving this country. Thousands of people are leaving this country. They don't want to be part of the new Bulgarian Empire. And after the capital is starting to get sieged and is captured, and in the peace treaty of Constantinople, we can see that a lot has happened, and Turkey has been demoted as the second strongest country in the world. We see, first of all, Bulgaria took basically all of the land in Macedonia. We can get to this in a bit, as well as a lot of northern Turkey, and yeah. They made a puppet state out of these areas right here, which is western Turkey. And we can also see that the Punic Union actually took a lot of small settlements here, basically trying to get a monopoly in their naval capabilities. A new Trebizond state exists. Their capital's over here, which is not in Trebizond, but it's alright. And this Turkish state is significantly weakened. So what's going to be happening is a new country is created right here. It is kind of just a Macedonian country. We'll take a look at what happens in that in the next episode. But anyways, let's go on to another collapse, which is the German collapse. This actually starts as Normandy makes an invasion. They've been doing a lot of conquering this episode. But they will be invading this part, which is just the Netherlands, of course. They don't really go beyond that. This signalizes a lot of people in this German country want to break away and rebel. Primarily the areas up here in the north, which are the Danish areas. These areas are going to go ahead and rebel. This includes Copenhagen and some of Sweden. But really, these areas aren't very populated anyway, so Germany doesn't see this as much of a threat and decides to invade. Some countries, like Lithuania, are going to see this, and they're going to officially make their invasion, conquering these parts of Poland, and they eventually go into more of this part of Germany. Normandy sees that Germany is currently collapsing, so they're going to go ahead So they're gonna go ahead and continue the invading. They reach up. They reach up and they capture the capital. In the peace treaty, we can go ahead and see that Lithuania is going to establish a little settlement right here in the Polish area. Denmark is officially independent. And Normandy is going to take a huge amount of land in the west. Back over here in Iberia, we are going to see a huge thing happening, which is the Portuguese are going to vote to join Galicia. And this is not good for Numidia. Numidia wanted to prevent this, and they, of course, couldn't. So they're going to go ahead and decide they're mad, and they want to invade a country. They're going to invade the weakened state of Algeria. These guys are definitely still a top 15 power, but they are nowhere near the former glory they used to be. Now, the Numidians, now this is definitely not a walk in the park for Numidia. Of course, these guys are going to be pushed back by the Algerian military. However, the Numidians are way better at fighting in the desert. I mean, they literally came from the desert. Who would have thought? So the Algerians are better at defending the coastal regions. However, this just leads this city to be unprotected, and they continue to march through, capturing this city and this city. The Numidians are going to annex this huge amount of land, and they are looking like a really strong power now. And countries around Numidia, like Morocco, like this country, like Valencia, are starting to get extremely worried about Numidia's future plans. We see another invasion. We see yet another invasion happening. This is really the age of invasions as well. We see this country right here. Yeah, they're going to get steamrolled, and it's not even fair. What do you think's happening in the peace treaty? Can you guess? Full annexation, you thought? You're right, Mickey Mouse. For the last part of today's video, we're going to see a war happen over here. Now, if you remember, when the whole Turkish collapse happened, we saw a lot of their military was right here, and they got squeezed out and decided to move to Armenia. Armenia has a very militarized population. However, Azerbaijan does not know this. And Azerbaijan wants to be the ruler of the Caucasus, so of course they're going to go ahead and meet up. Not the EDP type of meetup. I should not have made that joke. Immediately we see them barging into Armenia, however they get a quick stop very fast, and they did not expect this. They thought Armenia would just fall quick like a little bug, like a sweet little love bug. Immediately they get pushed back, and Azerbaijan's like, okay, what type of mistake did we just make? Like, how did we make this big of a mistake? You see how small this dude is? And yes, we do push up over here. They feel they have a connection with this city right here, which they really don't at all, but either way, they're going to take it. And Azerbaijan is extremely, and Azerbaijan goes through about 5 leaders during this crisis. They're not able to capture Baku and the surrounding areas because Azerbaijan fortifies it heavily. However, they are able to capture a majority of the western areas. And eventually, we're going to see a peace treaty come and get resolved here. That looks like this, with Armenia capturing a lot of the western and northern areas from Azerbaijan. Now, that's going to do it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, like and subscribe. Little side note here. If you see countries expand and explore in the next episode, it's because you don't really need to see that in every single episode. You don't need to see new countries form because it's kind of evident the next, because it's kind of boring. Oh, the country forms here, and then another country forms right here. So if you see new countries in, like, India or, like, Mesopotamia or somewhere over here, you'll know why. It's because they formed it, but I just didn't go over it because you didn't need to. This was kind of, pivotal, knowing this and this. But anyways, off topic. Goodbye.